Right. Hello, everyone. I'm Karen Marquez, the Chief Public Safety Brand Officer here at Rapid SOS. We are so glad that you can spend part of your day with us today for our Intelligent Safety Live webinar. Intelligent Safety Live is hosted by Rapid SOS. And I'm sorry, just one second here. If you're not familiar, Rapid SOS is an intelligent safety platform that securely links life-saving data to monitoring centers, 911, and field responders during emergencies. During our Intelligent Safety Live webinars, we aim to foster a sense of unity and shared purpose among all stakeholders in the community in the emergency response ecosystem from both public safety and private sector. We view these live sessions as an opportunity to connect and collaborate and catalyze change in emergency response by connecting private technology with public safety. Today, we encourage you to actively collaborate with us, engage, and ask questions using the Zoom tools. Today, we're excited to be joined by a panel, both from the public and the business, the public safety sector and the business sector. With us today, we have Chris Carver. He is the Director of Market Development at Hexagon Safety Infrastructure and Government, as well as Joe Parisi, CLSS Principal Customer Success Manager at Honeywell. So I will have these panelists provide a little bit of an introduction and shed some light on why you're here talking about emergency response today. And Chris, we'll kick that off with you.
Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for having me here. As long-standing partner with Rapid SOS, it's Hexagon's profound honor to be a part of the ecosystem that Rapid SOS has created to enhance the public safety of communities really across the United States and even beyond. And of course, the issue around how we reduce response time to fires, how we reduce response times to critical emergencies. Well, that's been Rapid SOS's mission since they started. And of course, it's been a passion of Hexagon's as well, all the way back to our days as Integraph and our 30 plus years as a leading CAD vendor in this industry. So I look forward to the opportunity to talk about some specifics and examples of how we can partner together with agencies and communities of almost any size to gain very, very important results in terms of fire response time and in terms of agency effectiveness. So thank you for having me, Karen.
Excellent. Thank you. And Joe? I know we had Joe here just a second ago. So bear with us and we'll make sure we don't have any technical difficulties happening because we are in a live webinar after all. Joe, do we still have you here? Okay, well, as he joins, oh, there you are, Joe.
Are you still with me?
Yes.
Okay, am I back, Karen?
You are back, Joe. Thank you so much. Can you introduce yourself and shed some light on why you're here talking about emergency response?
Absolutely, Karen. Thank you, and I apologize for the technical difficulties. My name is Joe Parisi. I am the Principal Customer Success Manager for Honeywell's solution of CLSS. And what that is Honeywell's Connected Life Safety Solutions. And essentially what Honeywell CLSS is, it's an overarching cloud solution that essentially connects all the fire detection devices in a commercial building, includes all the stakeholders amongst the fire alarm journey, and ultimately landing at the field responders.
Excellent. Well, we really appreciate the both of you being here today, as well as our entire audience. Today, our discussion is going to center around how innovative players, those in the commercial fire detection to fire monitoring to 911 CAD software, and how is this changing commercial fire dispatch? How is this being handled now versus how it used to be handled? The change really is focused on speed and accuracy, two words that really mean so much to us in the emergency response ecosystem. So Joe, I'm going to kick it off with you. For those who may not know, can you share just a little bit about what Honeywell Connected Life Safety Services, or CLSS, means, what that does, and what is its role in transforming fire response?
Sure. So to elaborate a little bit on where historically the fire alarm industry and the technology has started from, essentially, everything begins within the building with the fire detection devices. In this particular slide here, we show an example of a smoke detector. That's the initiating device. From there, there's a wired connection to the fire alarm control panel, and that normally takes approximately 10 seconds. This is traditional technology within every commercial building within the United States. But here's where CLSS really starts to shine. What Honeywell has done in conjunction with many of our partners is we've enhanced that communication technology between the fire alarm control panel and the central station, sometimes referred to as the monitoring station. Historically, over the last 70 years or so, we've relied on analog communications, often referred to as POTS lines or plain old telephone services. Well, this infrastructure is become obsolete and archaic. Most scenarios and jurisdictions, you cannot even subscribe to what we call an analog line these days. So what Honeywell has done, we've completely digitized that signal delivery, that life safety signal delivery, not only to the monitoring center and central station, but we bring that into the CLSS cloud. Now, this is where Honeywell has really leveraged a lot of our technology partners like RapidSOS, and we've created extensive digital connections to not only to the monitoring or central station, but also to the emergency response centers, to the fire alarm installation professionals, back to the responsible parties of that particular commercial building in the form of notifications of in-app alerting, through to the fire station and ultimately landing at the field responders to deliver the most comprehensive, detailed fire event zone information and emergency life safety signals.
There's a couple of words that I'm so excited to hear you say because it really resonates with the 911 folks and those in our public safety sector, and that is the POTS lines and the analog ways in which we used to have to work have to transform into digital requests for service or more digitized ways of communicating. So Chris, this next question is going to be over to you, and we're really excited because just last week, RapidSOS and Hexagon announced the launch of our joint digital alert solution in El Paso, Texas, integrating digital fire alerts, which you were just talking about, directly into their CAD system. Chris, can you talk a little bit about how this transforms the traditional model and the impact this will now have in El Paso, Texas, and other areas as they respond to fire alarms?
Certainly. And Karen, again, thank you for having me here. But the opportunity to talk about improving fire response is probably one of my most favorite things to discuss. For those of you that know my background, or maybe many don't, prior to my time with Hexagon and serving with Nina, I've been a fire service guy for basically my entire professional career, serving first as a fire EMS dispatcher in a one seat. You had to do everything yourself because there was no one else to help you environment. And then transitioning to someplace just a little bit larger, the New York City Fire Department, where I had the profound honor of being a part of that organization for almost 15 years. And in all those places, whatever the role and responsibility that I had was, it was well understood that we were part of a team devoted to getting the best possible response to fire emergencies. And many of those, as most of you will know on this webinar, come in via alarm activations. And alarm activations can be challenging. There are all kinds of environments in which those actually add complexity and add difficulty into a response environment. Say, for example, during a thunderstorm, you may end up getting overwhelmed by the number of fire alarms that come in. I've worked multiple days like that myself in my own career, where you may have had 20, 30, 40, 50 automatic alarms come in. And it's not just the fact that the alarm comes in, it's the fact of it being a rather lengthy voice conversation, a conversation that sometimes has some address confusion in it, especially in those situations where you may have an automatic alarm that's for an entire complex of buildings, say a school or hospital, but the address that's tied to that alarm activation that the alarm company is giving the dispatcher on the end of the phone, well, that activation may actually go to one central spot, but really that's not where the alarm is. And so it creates confusion and a little bit of difficulty that way. Now, of course, everybody's trained professionals and knows how to work through that. But even saving just a few seconds in that process by creating a streamlined way to get the actual data of where is it and what is it to a 911 center for processing and dispatch in seconds or almost instantaneously as a data transmission is such a vastly improved process over voice phone calls, especially when we look at the challenges of managing our limited resources when it comes to the human beings on the other end of that phone. And those parts of the emergency services ecosystem that can be digitized, that can be turned into a data transaction between an alarm monitoring center or an alarm itself and the responsible emergency communication center that's doing the dispatching, where we can automate those processes. It allows us to make the best use of those valuable humans that are in such short supply that are trained to be on the end of the phone. Far better to have them talk to callers who are calling in who need human interaction and intervention and need that connection than a process that really can be automated in the form that Rapid SOS is deployed. So for communities like El Paso and anywhere else that's considering deploying a system like this, consider it not just in savings of time for response, but consider it in terms of saving and avoiding complexity and also preserving valuable resources and allowing them to be utilized in the best way possible. Karen, I saw a question popped in on the chat. Would you like me to answer? I can answer that now if you like, or would you like to answer that one?
Sure, if you want to get started, and I can help add some context.
Sure. So ASAP to PSAP is, of course, a very valuable tool that is out there. It is utilizing a little bit different technology. It's utilizing inlets and things like that. It's also, the history of that's a little bit different. The configurations of that are different. It's similar in context. Karen, go ahead as far as additional detail from a Rapid SOS perspective.
Yes, I think you actually answered it on our behalf very well. It's not relying on inlets and some of the different standards and the way in which it works. We are bringing not just fire signals, but also a lot of different things like, yes, burglar alarms, commercial building alarms, but also we get into other spaces like school safety applications, school safety alerts, train derailment alerts and notifications. And as we move from that voice-centric analog world that Joe was talking about a little bit ago, we can bring in different kinds of sensors and also some unique workflows. When does monitoring come in? When do things escalate to the 911 system? And how do we get that into CAD in a way that does also feel very similar to ASAP, in which the telecommunicator, all they have to do is be working within their CAD application. They get the call for service, and all of the information is there in the workflow that they're used to every day. So we are not interrupting the way in which they work. That also helps them, Chris, as you mentioned, to stay focused on the things that they really need to invest that human capital time into, whether it's a caller in distress or maybe it's managing some things that are happening on the radio as well, because sometimes we're multitasking and doing a lot of different things. So getting the people where they need to be and really focus on those life safety actions that we can take from the 911 center. And Jack, I will definitely follow up with you as well in the future. So Joe, we're going to come back to you and talk about how the joint relationship or partnership between Honeywell and Rapid SOS also transforms that traditional model. We kind of touched on it a little bit when we were talking about CLSS and looking at that picture. But what role does Honeywell play in the end-to-end digital request for service and dispatch?
So our end goal and our mantra is really an effort towards what we refer to as our North Star effort. And what that slogan is zero losses in our communities from a fire event. So by shortening and recapturing and delivering time savings from the fire detection device all the way to the field responder, and in some cases shaving off 8 minutes, 8 very valuable, precious minutes for the field responder to respond to a fire event. And those 8 minutes are valued because in every aspect of a fire event, early detection, early response, early arrival to the commercial building, to that fire event, could mean the difference between a slight damage to the building or a complete loss to the building. And ultimately, it means the difference between saving lives or not. So that's what we're all driven towards. Now, once we digitize everything, we deliver those 8 minutes back to those first responders, outcomes become much, much better.
Excellent. Chris, field responders spend countless hours drilling to reduce response times, as Joe was just talking about. So we're always trying to make different plans and agreements, mutual aid, automatic aid, to cut those response times down. With that in mind, what are your thoughts on the value of this end-to-end digital response to save time?
So, I mean, you spoke to it very, very well. And Joe, absolutely, you're right on with, I think, the goal of everybody involved in public safety technology is to deploy solutions that cut down on response time. And, one of my former responsibilities in my career was to serve on NFPA committees that develop the guidelines that decide what response time should be and what our goals are. And the data is absolutely clear about the benefits of improving response time wherever we can find it. And there's only so much we can do on the drive time, for example. You can't have a firehouse on every corner. It's just not realistic. It's also not realistic sometimes to avoid traffic. Yes, there are some solutions out there that can help manage it or mitigate it, but ultimately that's going to be there. And it's always going to take about the same amount of time for firefighters, ideally, to get out of a station, get on a piece of apparatus and respond. That time is pretty fixed. I mean, you can certainly work on improving it, but unless the firefighters are sitting in a truck in their station with the engine turned on and the door up and ready to go, there's only so much work we can do there. So where do we have to find time? Where can we find time? We can find it on detection. Cutting down the amount of time it takes for a system, in this case, a fire alarm system, obviously, to to realize there's a problem and send that information. We can cut down on the time in the central monitoring station and getting that information back out. We can cut down on the answer time at the 911 center to actually pick up or connect with a phone to enter that information in. And we can cut down on the processing time required to validate an address, determine what the response should be. The beauty of digitizing the alarm monitoring and response process is that you actually focus attention where you can and get the best result. To Joe's comment about 8 minutes, not only is it 8 minutes on just the alarm processing time, there's also a challenge when you have mutual aid involved, Karen, to your point. Because if I have mutual aid and I'm trying to get responses from multiple agencies, potentially, depending on the way the system is organized or way your agencies work together, if you don't have a CAD-to-CAD data exchange or you don't have some commonality in how you communicate, you may add additional minutes onto the process then too. So yet again, you're back to really every second that you can save with response, especially the automatic alarms, is a second gained, not just in terms of the times and us wanting to make sure that we respond as quickly and effectively as possible to alarms when they come in, but also in terms of the viability of folks involved in that process, their lives to be saved and property damage to be minimized. And another key point is the faster that units are able to go there and investigate, the faster they're able to be back available for the next event that happens. I don't know any agency that has too many fire trucks or too many firefighters on the street and they're trying to figure, I've got so many, what do I do with them? No, in fact, it's quite the opposite, that so many agencies around the country are just strapped. And again, managing those resources more effectively through tools like the CLSS solution from Honeywell in partnership with Rapid SOS and in partnership with a CAD that's configured to support it and coordinate with it and effectively communicate with it. All those things together can really be game changers when it comes to response time, whether it's my own events in my own agency, or especially those when I'm coordinating the response of a larger group of field responders.
Right. And, Chris, a couple of things that you're talking about there when we talk about sending the right unit to the right place at the right time. Context is so important. So when we have analog workflows, there's times that context is missing. And so being able to digitize and share this information, if there's a CAD to CAD, or being able to move that data around, but we have to have a CAD system also that has all of those rules to ensure that the right units are being sent. That's a whole different view on life safety, because it's not about the property now where we have the fire alarm, but we have large pieces of apparatus that are driving on our streets at a high rate of speed to get somewhere they may not need to be going emergent. And so that can also help cut down on potential traffic incidents or fatalities as we have units responding because they have contextual information and all the right data. And so, Joe, this is going to kind of come to you now. What types of critical data and information does Honeywell see as most important to connect to first responders and our field responders during a building fire?
So it comes down to this valuable contextual data, where a lot of legacy fire systems that are out there will simply report to the monitoring center and will be dispatched to the field responders as general fire or point 12 fire, point 12 heat detector. Contextual data really delivers because the Honeywell solution reaches into a lot of times into the Honeywell brand systems. We reach into the panel program and we extract that point data and we deliver. It's the front vestibule heat detector, northeast building, or third floor ladder well, whatever the case may be. And we pinpoint that data in that location for the field responder. I did see a message pop up in the chat to say, is this available for only Honeywell systems? CLSS is brand agnostic. We are partnering with some of our most fiercest hardware competitors to bring them into the CLSS ecosystem because CLSS is not a Honeywell solution. CLSS is a commercial fire solution. It is life safety, and we are partnering with everybody for one reason alone: zero losses in our communities and delivering that contextual data directly to the field responder, because traditionally now when the field responder arrived on location, the first place they stop is the fire alarm annunciator. Then they have to respond to the point location. When, because of our integration and one of our recent acquisitions of US Digital Design, we have fire station alerting, we have first responder alerting. So all of that detail not only hits the ECC or the PSAP, but it also hits the fire station and it also hits the first field responder themselves. Again, saving that extra time of response, discovering that location, and providing a better outcome in that fire alarm scenario.
Karen, may I add on just there for a second to what
Yes.
Joe mentioned? So for everyone watching today, a very real world example that we saw happen just a few years ago, and many of us watched it live on TV, was the Notre Dame Cathedral in Paris. And if you go back and read the study about what happened with that fire, it started as a fire alarm. And it started as a fire alarm that the policy was people went to investigate before they notified the fire brigade to respond. That amount of time, that delay, nearly cost us a priceless global treasure, all because of a fire alarm, because of what happened. Now, imagine an integrated world. So Joe was talking about the US Digital Designs and RapidSOS has other mobility tools, as does Hexagon, to connect with responders. But now imagine in another Hexagon tool, and this tool is offered by others as well, the ability to integrate security systems and video and other sensor data into this holistic picture that now you have first your automatic alarm that's arrived via the portal, as we've discussed, then combined with all the other available information sources that allow you to have a really strong understanding. Oh my, is this fire alarm actually a well in progress fire in the roof of an unbelievably complex and valuable building that's an incredibly important cultural element that we should now upgrade the response to? Or is it something that maybe we go back to Karen's point and we have looked at everywhere the alarm says that there's a fire, there is nothing, there's no indication of anything. We've looked at the video cameras from here, we've done all this stuff. And quite frankly, now I'm going to talk way future, Karen. I apologize. I'm going to go off script for a minute. Imagine the ability of partnering that data with AI tools that we already have today that can then come back and say, hey, this fire alarm, yes, you're still going to go investigate it, but to Karen's point, maybe this is a non-emergency response.
Yes.
This doesn't have to be upgraded. Maybe this is just an investigation response, and we go send somebody to verify what we believe it to be. And that level of capability and that level of capacity helps us all, whether we're vendor, agency, technology partner, whatever our role is in this, to really create the modern public safety ecosystem that I think the public already expects us to be providing, and the future will absolutely demand us to provide.
You're absolutely right. There's a public expectation that maybe is not being met today because of limitations living in an analog world. And so, as we plan on moving forward, what can we utilize from a technology perspective to streamline the workflows from the sensor that knows exactly what's happening and knows exactly where in a facility that is occurring, and getting that information over to 911, monitoring when needed, and especially out to those field responders. And Joe, you were also talking about contextual information. One of the biggest tensions and frustrations that 911 has experienced over the years dealing with alarms is there's no information. If it comes in as a general fire alarm, that is absolutely not helpful. And it creates kind of a reputation for the alarm industry that is not positive. And so this is the ability also for us to change the way and start to trust these systems that are telling us that contextual information. But also, Joe, I do want you to hit a little bit on real-time and subsequent alarms, because we're not now getting a new phone call, right? How are we piecing those things together, and how does that help also provide information for things that Chris was mentioning, like, do we know that there's a real fire, or is this just smoke, popcorn, or something?
Great question, Karen. So, and very valid point. So when it comes to a fire event or a fire alarm, it's one thing if you received one event and it's a smoke detector. But after the the field responders are sent to the event, what happens next? Well, the fire spreads. So where does this fire spread? Is it getting larger? Now we have multiple heat detectors in alarm. So now that contextual data provides real-time access to that field responder on site saying the fire's spreading. Well, what if I'm on the third or fourth floor and the fire's spreading over me? Does the roof collapse? What if it's under me? Does the floor give away? So not only we delivering real-time, faster information to field responders, but we're providing that valuable situational awareness to protect our field responders' safety. And that's ultimately invaluable, because if we have one single asset that's really important to our communities, it's our field responders.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for that. Chris, question for you. What considerations should be a priority for agencies when they're deciding to integrate digital alerts directly into CAD?
So a couple of items. First and foremost, quite honestly, this is advice that is agnostic to vendor regarding your system. But all of these new technologies and new tools are really putting, almost in a way I could describe it as, unforeseen demands on agencies to engage with their vendors as a partner. The challenge is whether it's Rapid SOS and capabilities they provide, whether it's ASAP to PSAP, to use an example that's already been mentioned, whether it's US digital designs and changing how fire station alerting works. What we find so often is that the possibility of improvement is more challenging to meet because conversations have not happened. When you're considering solving an issue by deploying technology, when you're considering buying a new cat, when you're considering replacing the mobiles that you've used in your law enforcement vehicles for 12 years, whatever that is, that conversation, there's a million other examples, right? That conversation, that process needs to start by engaging the folks that are suffering from the issue, right? That want to improve it. And then by having an honest conversation and ongoing conversations with the vendors who you're relying on to help you make that situation better. And those conversations help identify, is there an interface that we need? Is there a networking challenge that may cause us, we have to overcome in order to be able to use this thing? Are our mobile devices actually capable of displaying the information that we want? Do we have tablets in the field? And versus, do we have ruggedized laptops? What's the difference of that? All this little stuff. And I realize that, it is a horrible thing for me, with more years than I care to admit, as part of this industry, to say this to all of you who are watching. This is more work, and it's hard work, and it's challenging work, but the results are worth it, because many is the agency around this country that has a failed technology project that did not live up to its promise or potential. And so often that comes down not necessarily because the software failed or not necessarily because the network failed, but because the communication, the coordination maybe were not as good as they could have been. So take that time to talk to your vendors, to identify what it is you need, to engage the team inside your organization, find some folks in there that can support it, and then figure out your path forward and recognize as much as it's Rapid SOS, whatever PSAP you go into, it's Hexagon, wherever you find a Hexagon customer. Still, there's nuances, right? And identifying those ahead of time and communicating about them and connecting over them can help you ensure that whatever your technology project is, it's successful.
Yeah, and I would just make a plea to any of the industry partners that are listening today. You need to be a good partner to your agencies, and the agencies a partner to your industry partners, your vendor community. One thing that I think worked out so well as this was being built for El Paso, Texas, was the time and effort that their team also put in to making sure we all were on the same page of the issues that they were trying to address. Number one, from a staffing challenge, right? And making sure that we can free up some time by creating some digital tools and solutions. We had to make considerations into how they respond, what information their mapping data had. And so we had such a fantastic partner that was communicating so well with both of us as we built this, that's only going to be valuable for every other customer that comes on board as well, and how it integrates with the other solutions within their ecosystem. So I do want to mention that this digital alerts workflow is not specific to fire only. While we're talking about fire heavily today with our partners, we can also bring in alerts from home security systems, other commercial types of alarms, school safety activations, as well as train derailment through our partner with Norfolk Southern. So there is more information that we'd be able to provide you. Just reach out to Rapid SOS and I'll tell you how to do that towards the end. So talking about all of the different types of sensors, you know, even aside from fire alarms, what excites you about the future of commercial fire response? And Joe, I'm going to have you kick it off there.
Sure. So one of the things Honeywell is most excited about is our partnerships and our integrations. Anything that we can bring into the CLSS ecosystem, and that's really what it is, Karen, is you hit the nail on the head with that earlier in that statement. It is an ecosystem. So everything I can tie into CLSS, whether it's a Honeywell panel, Honeywell detection device, or even a competing hardware component of the Honeywell offering, everything comes into the CLSS ecosystem. And that's why I cannot stress enough that CLSS is a fire solution, not a Honeywell solution. And it's to be used for one reason and one reason alone, and that's zero losses in our communities. Ultimately, we can continue to strive to reach that goal and prevent any damage or disruptions within our communities due to a fire event. That's a success. And we should not depend on outdated and archaic communication systems that today we don't use for our normal voice communications. Ultimately, this is life safety. We take it very serious, and so should every other fire professional in the industry.
I love that. Chris, how about you?
Yeah, I think Joe actually said it really well. I mean, we're at the precipice of a time, and if you ever heard me speak at an event, you've heard me say this, 3 to 5 years from now, when a phone rings in a center, it'll be kind of shocking. It'll mean we're getting some sort of event that we know is absolutely legitimate. Probably medical calls, I would say, will be the one thing that we'll continue to get voice calls for, and maybe some law enforcement events. But so much of our future is going to be a combination of wearables, sensors, apps, like a Waze app where people hit a button for an auto accident. And our role, I think, in my opinion, as a public safety telecommunications professional, the role is now going to be so much more of an analyst, not in the sense that's been used for crime analysts. That's certainly a part of it, analyzing RTCCs and all that, but analyzing and supporting the inflow of all this data, and then coming up with what does this all really tell us about what's going on there. Auto accident on the highway is the combination of the Waze app and the traffic camera and the wearables of the people in the car telling you that it's a fender bender, or have you gotten enough information from your initial 4 or 5 data sources to indicate that you should put not 1, not 2, but 3 helicopters in the air and already have a staging area and be sharing medical data that you're able to access from that person's profile in whatever system that may be in back to a trauma center because they have some specialized medical condition that we need to prepare for. That's not crazy science. That's not Jetsons. That's not fun. We'll have all that a long time before we have the flying car. And that's what makes it so exciting to be a part of this, to be able to see this future that's here. And Karen, I know you're involved with Nina as well. I don't think it's next generation 911 anymore. I think it's now generation. And that's where we are. And this is a great example of the type of future that these types of tools and opportunities offer. And if I may add, perfect way that they're going to happen. It's exactly how they're going to happen. Vendors partnering together, like Rapid SOS and Hexagon, supported by related, but always slightly separate, but now not separate anymore, vendors like Honeywell, deploying, in essence, a third-party technology and deploying that technology in partnership with agencies that are passionate about leveraging technological advances to improve the safety of their community. This is the soup, folks. This is exactly the soup of how this is all going to go going forward if it goes well. So that's why I'm excited, Karen. There, thank you.
Okay, so now I'm going to share with you why I am excited, because you mentioned a few things that really resonate with why Rapid SOS is the intelligent safety platform. And that is, one, we are seeing so many more sensors in our community, and that voice-centric call, it is going to diminish, and it is going to be the one that's like, wow, something weird is going on because there's actually a phone ringing, because we're so used to these sensors. And I do foresee a world in which, in the not too distant future, this analyst role where we're really looking at and validating data and sending that data on, and not having these engaging conversations and having to interrogate callers as much. So few things that you just said resonated with me, and I get very excited about, and I can go on for probably another half hour or so, but out of respect for people's time. A couple of things that I want to share that just does address a question that was posed, and that is about budgeting and funding. There are no cost to low cost solutions and ways to get this data into your systems. And I think, again, this is where the Rapid SOS Intelligent Safety Platform really comes into play. Number one, we are working with providers who are sending that data to us through these new and unique workflows, and then working with the public safety vendors and software community to make sure that it is getting to everyone it needs to be in front of at those right times. And so we can kind of work with you on what you're trying to solve, where you're trying to solve that, and making sure the data is flowing into those applications. So for the question that came in, I would say reach out to us and let us help you figure out what are the staffing challenges, what are those budgetary concerns that you have, and let's find the right solution to meet your needs, because we can also make sure that there is an experience for you that's going to work best for you, either now as we roadmap into the future and help you budget that out for even a more improved workflow. Chris, or Joe, do you have anything to add to that?
So the last item I'd like to add is I encourage everyone to partner with Honeywell CLSS, and it all starts with that hardware enablement. Get that life safety signal into the CLSS cloud so we can eliminate that lag time and deliver those valuable life safety signals faster to our field responders.
Excellent. Chris, any last thoughts from you?
Yeah, I would just add that for those of you that have a CAD vendor, which I think is probably almost all of you, reach out to your vendor, talk to whoever your account manager is or your customer service representative, and have conversations today about how you can reduce response times, how you can improve the safety of the public, and how you can start leveraging great advances in technology like the one we've talked about today, like the partnership opportunities with Rapid SOS, and others, to get better results in your community. Start having those conversations now so that they can be ready to support you, and so that you can drive these sorts of really amazing evolutionary leaps in the service that we're able to provide really communities everywhere through a coordinated and consolidated effort amongst vendors and the public safety community.
Yeah, and I hope one of the takeaways today was that whether you're working in the private sector, a consumer-facing company, or if you're in the the public sector, and you're serving your community, we are all in the same mission, and that is to save lives through technology as well. So we are here as your providers. We're all in this together. So I sincerely want to thank everyone for your generosity, your insights with us today. Thank you for participating and for asking your questions. A big thanks to those of you that joined to learn about how digital alerts are transforming fire response. Chris and Joe, for your time. This is just one of the many digital alerts that RapidSOS connects directly to public safety. So for more information, please visit rapidsos.com to learn more about how we connect our nation's buildings, trains, vehicles, homes, and so much more to emergency services. And if you're from the private sector, you can learn more about how to digitally connect your business to our first responders, our 911, and our field folks in order to protect your customers, your employees, and your reputation. For those of you from the public sector, you can learn more about the different types of digital incident data in our intelligent safety platform by reaching out to us at RapidSOS, and you can do that through the website as well. And of course, should you have any additional questions that were not answered today, please feel free to connect with us. You can reach out via LinkedIn or email. I don't know if we have our information out there, but we can certainly provide that for you post watching this session. And we, again, just thank you so much for your time. If you would like a demo, because I saw that as one of the questions, please follow up with us after this webinar, again, on LinkedIn. And I'll just provide my email address real quick. It's kmarquez@rapidsos.com, KMARQUEZ@rapidsos.com. And I can filter any questions to our folks at Honeywell or Hexagon as well. Thank you again so much for your time. Enjoy your day.